Once upon a time, there lived a very beautiful woman called Ngena. Ngena was a rare beauty. Her eyes were perfect, her face extremely pretty, and her hips were perfectly curved. People in the village, both male and female, admired her for her good looks because she was the prettiest woman in the land. Because of how people showed their admiration to Ngena for her good looks, Ngena became extremely proud and rude. She began treating her friends badly. Whenever they were walking and chatting, she would always find a way to brag about her beauty. She began to belittle her friends, and she started cutting some of them off because of stupid reasons, like because they were not pretty enough or because they did not worship her beauty. In short, Ngena's attitude towards her friends changed. Because of her rare beauty, men in the village admired Ngena so much. Every man in the village wanted Ngena to be his, or at least have a chance to speak to her. Many men also proposed to Ngena, but she rejected them. She would find stupid reasons for rejecting them. To one, she rejected him because his height matched with hers. She rejected another man because she claimed that he smelled too much and he seemed stupid for doing so. She rejected a certain man because he was a poor hunter, and she told him that she wasn't born to marry a poor man. She rejected another one because his lips were too big, and yet he came from a very rich family that Ngena always wanted. In short, Ngena wanted a perfect man with both good looks and plenty of money. News of Ngena rejecting people's proposal to marry her spread far and wide from one village to another. Men from different villages, both rich and poor, young and old, came to try their luck in marrying the rare, beautiful Ngena, but none succeeded. One day, the news of Ngena's behavior reached the ears of a young man called Wambua. On hearing the news of the pretty woman, Wambua could not get her image out of his mind. He wished and dreamt that he could meet this pretty lady and confess his love for her. When his friends heard him talking about his wishes to propose to Ngena, they laughed. They laughed at him, saying, "If the richest of the richest men and even good-looking men more than you she has rejected, who do you think you are that she is going to accept to marry you?" Wambua smiled at them and said, "I might be poor, but I'm going to get her. That I promise." After that day, Wambua thought a lot. He thought of many ideas that he would use to get Ngena to like her. But one thing he knew for sure was that he needed to look rich and neat and a good guy. Every day, he thought about Ngena, and he really desired and wanted her. One day, as he was sitting at his friend's house and thinking of what to do, he came up with an idea to finally get Ngena's attention and affection. He went to his friend Kamau and borrowed him his favorite clothes, claiming that he was going for a very important event. Without hesitation, Kamau gave him his fine clothes and wished him a safe journey. In the morning, Wambua prepared himself nicely and wore the beautiful clothes he had borrowed. He left his village to go to the village where Ngena lived. By God's grace, Wambua met Ngena as she was coming back from fetching water at the river. Instead of speaking to her like other men normally did, Wambua passed Ngena like he hadn't seen anything or anyone. This shocked Ngena so much. She felt so bitter and surprised that Wambua had not stopped to even greet her. Ngena thought to herself, "Who does he think he is? Why has he not stopped to greet me or even comment on my beauty? Has he not seen me, or what is wrong with him?" Ngena was so upset, and she stared at Wambua until he left. After 1 week, Wambua returned yet again to Ngena's village. This time, Ngena was walking with her friends. Wambua passed them without saying a word and he left. Ngena was so mad and she wondered, is this man blind? Does he not see that I am the prettiest woman this land has ever seen? This man shocked Ngena and she was very disturbed about him. She stayed awake late at night thinking why this man never saw her beauty like others did. One day, Wambua went to one of his friends and borrowed him his fine clothing. His friend gave him the clothes without any delay. Wambua wore the good-looking clothes he had borrowed and left to go to Ngena's village. This time, he went to Ngena's home and knocked on the door. Ngena's mother opened the door and Wambua was very shocked because he expected that Ngena was the one who would open the door. Wambua looked at Ngena's mother and respectfully greeted her. He begged her for a cup of water, claiming that he was very thirsty. By this time, Wambua was so sad that he had not seen Ngena. Suddenly, Ngena's mother shouted, "Ngena! Ngena, please bring a cup full of water and give it to this man." "Okay, mother," Ngena replied in a soft voice. When Ngena brought the glass of water, she was surprised to see the guy who had always ignored her at their doorstep. As she gave him the glass of water, Ngena felt very happy. She was happy that Wambua had noticed her and smiled at her. Ngena started asking Wambua questions like who he was and where he was from. Wambua lied to her that he was a very rich man who came from a rich family where he was the only child. Ngena believed him because of how he dressed and how he carried himself. She was very happy and she hoped that this good-looking rich man will propose to her and marry her. After many hours of spending time with Ngena, Wambua left Ngena's home filled with happiness for he had won her heart. That night, Ngena did not sleep. She was awake, busy fantasizing about the moment she had spent with Wambua, and she was totally convinced that Wambua was the right man for her. After that day, Wambua kept visiting Ngena each and every day, and their bond grew stronger. They became a couple, and Wambua borrowed money from friends and family and paid for Ngena's bride price. All this time, Ngena did not suspect that Wambua was not the rich man he said he was. The two got married and Wambua took Ngena to his village as his wife. When Ngena arrived at Wambua's house, she was surprised. The house she expected was a big mansion, yet where she was taken was a small house. Upon entering the house, Ngena was very shocked. This was not Wambua's house, but his friend's house. His friend had felt pity on him and decided to allow him to stay in his house because Wambua was a very poor man. Ngena was disappointed and angry at herself. How could she have not seen this coming? She felt like running away, but where could she go to? She was already married to Wambua and taken the vow to never leave him and stick with him for rich or for poor. Ngena wished that all she was experiencing and all she was seeing was a nightmare, but it was not. She had gotten married to Wambua, a man with no fine clothes, no house, no property, no riches, just a liar. All that man had was Ngena, a rare beauty with a foolish mind. So, what's the moral lesson? This story teaches us that all that glitters is not gold. We should be very careful with who we trust with ourselves. This story also teaches us that we should be kind and caring towards others no matter their status. Let's all try to not only be beautiful on the outside but also be beautiful on the inside. Anyway, guys, that was it for today's story. I really hope that you enjoyed it and learned something out of it. I hope to see you in the next one. Kwaheri.